all wrapped up and it was all tied up, and I didn't know how to express it, what to say. I didn't know that I was allowed to say anything. I was too ashamed to tell anybody how I was feeling or what I was feeling, or too ashamed to, what if I got it wrong? Like, there's this whole bunch of massive knot. And as soon as I started, I sat down with people.
Here we go.
Are we going to actually record a podcast right now?
Yes.
Oh my God, I'm not even prepared.
It doesn't matter. Perfect. That's what I like. That is exactly what I want.
I thought we were just going to sit down and have a chat about what was going to happen, but I guess here we are.
Here we are. Have we got time for it?
Yeah, we do. Hold on one second. Let's see if I can get my lighting a little bit better.
Sure. See, this is the thing. I think I needed to be a bit more specific when talking to people about what exactly we're doing. Like when I say get on a call, like do the thing proper through and through. But
yeah,
also, I also like the surprise element.
The surprise element's fun. I get it. I'm a podcaster myself, so I completely some podcasts of our own, I don't show up prepared, and some of them I do. It works out. Either way, this is going to be fun.
I think this is going to be perfect because this is the thing that I really like, the fact that so far with the people that I've had on my podcast, I've kind of known things about, except you and the lady that I interviewed earlier today, which is great. Welcome to this, I was going to call it a shit show, which is totally probably going to end up being like that.
It's going to be great.
That's the best kind of program.
The greatest shit show on earth. Let's go for it.
Of course. Yes, let's do this. Well, I have no clue who you are and what you do, except what you shared on the comments in the post that I made. So I would love it if you could introduce yourself and go with your story. Tell me your story. Share it with the world.
It's amazing that you went off a little snippet that I wrote on a Facebook post, and you were like, hey, let's go for it. So my name's Steve Knapp. I'm originally from Ontario, Canada.
Cool.
And right now I'm actually living in Colorado, but this all began even because the message that I left you was talking about emotions, right? Emotions and healing. And this all began because I got sober about 3.5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had a problem. I had a big drinking problem, which never really destroyed my life. It never got that far. It never got that far where I lost my family, where I lost my house, my car. I never got arrested. I still had my job. I still had a corporate job making over $100,000 a year. So it never got that bad where I lost the stuff, but I did lose myself in that whole process. And what I was mentioning to you when you were looking for a podcast guest is part of my healing was figuring out what I was feeling. And I named so many emotions wrong. And when you name them wrong, I found out you feel them wrong too. So if you live in happy, sad, or mad, you're missing out on this whole spectrum of emotions that you could be feeling and you could be healing from. But if I just say I'm happy and I'm actually experiencing joy, I'm robbing myself of the joy.
Mm-hmm.
And if I just say I'm mad and I'm really just disappointed, I'm robbing myself of figuring out how to deal with the disappointment instead of just my anger.
So how did you point that out? How did you figure that out for yourself? Like what process did you go through that you realized, first of all, that there's more emotions out there than you initially thought? Like what brought that on? What made you stop, basically? Like what made you get sober?
What made me get sober was my wife found my credit card bill, and she was just like, what is this? Right? Because I had everything hidden on my own credit card, and she pulled it out of the mail one day and decided to take a look at it and was like, what's this? And she gave me an out. I had the opportunity to either blame it on a friend that I was buying alcohol for a friend, or I had to stand in front of it. And so what came down to it was I wasn't willing to throw my friend under the bus or throw that friendship under the bus for the sake of continuing the lie. The lie got too big to carry.
Mm-hmm.
It was just absolutely difficult to carry that. I was living so many different lives within different people, right? That chameleon type role,
Mm-hmm.
where and then certain people couldn't talk to each other because otherwise, like, I would just be full of anxiety because like, well, what if they say the one thing over here, and then this person knows, and then they're gonna have a conversation, and then I'm gonna get caught. And so she called me out, and I said, yeah, I have a problem, and I did. I had a problem. I was drinking more than a bottle a day, and I don't really want to make this podcast about like my alcoholism or telling my story so much as it was the reason why I started down this path. So I had to figure out how I was going to heal, and the only thing I knew that existed was AA. So I went to AA to start, and then I found some other ways to connect. Like I was this ball of emotion,
Mm-hmm.
all wrapped up, and it was all tied up, and I didn't know how to express it, what to say. I didn't know that I was allowed to say anything. I was too ashamed to tell anybody how I was feeling or what I was feeling, or too ashamed to, what if I got it wrong? Like, there's this whole bunch of massive knot. And as soon as I started, I sat down with people that came from where I came from, who understood me. I was allowed to start dumping all of my shame outside of me. And then as I was doing that, and as I was expressing myself, which was something I was always afraid of. I'm a man, and I say this as a man, but I know women experience the same thing. You're grown up, taught to like turn it off, right? Right? You have these negative emotions, you have these negative feelings, and your parents are like, just get over it.
Mm-hmm.
And then so there's this constant little bit of invalidation here and there that come through, and then okay, I have to do something different with my anger, I have to do something different with my sadness, I have to do something different with my joy, because joy in and of itself is a really, really vulnerable emotion to share, which is something I didn't know. You'd be somewhere and you'd just be in awe and wonder. Those are two emotions I didn't even know existed. And you'd be this awe and wonder, and then you'd look around, and then you'd have these people that you weren't fully comfortable with, and then you'd shut it down. I would shut it down. And then I didn't really get to feel or express or really enjoy the moment as much as I could have, because I was too afraid to show who I really was. So in learning this, and what, like, my favorite book about all of this emotions is called Atlas of the Heart by Brene Brown.
Ooh, I'm gonna have to write that down because I love a good book recommendation. So
This is the book that kind of, as I was going through this process of like sharing parts of my story, being vulnerable for really the first time, and not being shut down, and just being accepted and just being heard, it was like practice. It's like practice, sitting down with somebody, a friend or whoever that was, and sharing a part of my story, and sharing those thoughts that go through your head that you're like, I'm not telling anybody about what the stuff that's going on through my head. But, this is nuts. The stuff going on up here is nuts. You know what I mean?
yep.
You start telling somebody a story about that inner dialogue that you have about, we could even talk about, you play the video off in your head, and you're super stressed, and you're really, really low, and the thought goes through your mind, man, I could just jump off that bridge and this would be over. How many of us have that thought and we're just too deathly afraid of like saying it? You
Mm-hmm.
don't mean it. You have no intention of actually doing it, but you're absolutely fearful of like what kind of shit show you're gonna cause just because the thought crossed your mind.
Yeah.
And you can use that example for a plethora of other things. So yeah, man, I really feel like having a drink today. Um, there's nothing bad about it. There's nothing bad. Like, we treat our negative thoughts like they're horrible things,
Mm-hmm.
you know? Because I grew up, you have the negative thoughts and they just get bounced right back to you. Like, this is yours, you're going to deal with it. I'm not going to sit in it with you. We're not going to be in it together. Because I don't know how to sit with someone properly while they're feeling the way they're feeling, and just let it be. That's how
Yeah.
you show up for someone. And I didn't know how to do that until someone did it for me. I let somebody in.
So how did that happen? How did that come about? Because I so understand this, allowing yourself to be held, basically.
I had no choice.
Mm.
I had the choice of either allowing myself to be held or going back to drinking.
Mm-hmm.
And I never want to meet that man. I'm getting teary. I never want to meet that man again, Phoenix.
Mm.
I never want to meet that man again. That terrifies the living crap out of me. And so I have the choice of letting someone hold me being honest and real and vulnerable. And the fear of rejection is huge in there. Or I have the choice of being alone again. And when you sit in a room full of people that you don't connect with, it's lonely as shit. While in my drinking, I never allowed myself to really be seen. I
Mm-hmm.
never allowed my authentic self, I didn't know who I was, to be seen. I was too afraid of it. I was too afraid of if that rejection, that connection, the hurt, the loss. So if I don't ever show it, I don't ever have to suffer from it either. Except for if you don't ever show it, you continue to suffer anyway. So the message that I sent you is is you know, I read that book and it opened my eyes up. She says there's 87 different emotions. And that's like living in the rainbow of life.
So what came after the book? What Okay, you read the book and you realized
Yeah.
that there's so much more to you than you thought.
Mm-hmm.
And so besides the AA, what else was there for you?
I became a member of an online group. I downloaded an app when I was on day 6. It was called I Am Sober.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I started posting parts of my story and those, like some of my inner dialogue, and it's all still there. But I started posting parts of my story, and then people were relating back to it. And once I got just past it, about 4 or 5 months sober, there's a community on there that hosted meetings that I decided to go and join, and they hosted meetings that were very much like just people showing up and sharing life. They were all in recovery from alcohol, and some of them were people that went in AA. Some of them people were figuring it out on their own. Some people were going to therapists. Some people were. It was just a bunch of people with a common goal to get sober, and that have a whole bunch of different backgrounds. Because I got sober during COVID, so you couldn't go and see people or say hi or anything like that. So everything I did was online.
Mm-hmm.
So I started going to these meetings, and then I started hosting them, and I started like becoming involved in that community more than I was in the AA community that I was a part of. So like that's right then and there is the inspiration for what I'm doing now. what I'm doing now is it was the inspiration. Those meetings were the inspiration for a podcast that I host. We're on season 3 now.
Oh,
I,
wow.
I met a friend through recovery in those meetings, and so we're on we're going to be releasing episode like 102 this week. Yeah,
Congratulations.
yeah,
Congratulations. That's freaking amazing.
and it's a recovery sobriety podcast. But what we do is something a little bit different. We get 2 or 3 people to join myself and Julie. She's my co-host, and we talk about a topic related to recovery.
Mm.
So it's not people like I want to know what your experience is with social anxiety. And that's it.
Yeah.
Let's just talk
Yeah.
about social anxiety and see how that goes. What's your experience with loneliness? How how does that feel to you? How have you dealt with it? What are the things that have worked for you? What hasn't? And then so we try and share those perspectives in a conversation style of a
Mm-hmm.
podcast. And it's been really cool and super fulfilling. Uh, that is literally the style of meeting that I went to with my co-host Julie. That's where we met, and we wanted to take those conversations because they were so amazing and valuable to us. We wanted to take those conversations and bring that into like audio form, give it to the world.
Mm-hmm. So
So
is it on an audio platform, your
it's
podcast?
it is on Spotify, Apple. It's on all of the things:
Mm-hmm.
Amazon Music, Spotify, Apple Podcast, you name it. It's on there. It's out there, and I mean, we're both certified recovery coaches. We're both. Uh, it's just kind of like morphed into its own thing.
Mm-hmm.
I've actually moved from Ontario to western slope of Colorado now, and I'm going back to school. Um, so like you never know where life is going to take you. Uh,
That's for sure.
and so a neat thing,
So what are you going to school for? What's this step?
I'm going to take business so I can understand a little bit about starting my own business.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I want to either minor or double major in either social work or psychology or something along those lines so I can just better understand, like I said in the message that I responded to you looking for podcast guests, that emotions are fascinating to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like we do so much, we operate so much on emotion and reaction as opposed to response, and learning to like understand, okay, this is how I feel right now. Something happened. My truck window cracked, or somebody cut me off, or whatever it is. What is the emotion I'm feeling right now? I used to never be able to name that.
Mm-hmm.
And without practice, you just don't. And without a safe space, you just don't. It's really hard because I got it wrong a whole bunch of times. I got anger, like anger as a secondary emotion. What is feeding into it? And I used to never be able to describe that. What was feeding into it was that anger came from like my inner child. My 5-year-old Steve was, he was hurt. Somebody did something to me, and it's not. And there's different ways we can word it too, right? Like no one ever does something to you. No one ever really makes you feel something. I literally can choose how I want to feel about something. Like, understanding that that's a choice that I have to make and a perspective that I get to put on it, like a lens that I can, empowers me so much to give life a perspective where I can move forward instead of just stay stuck and be a victim of my own crap.
Mm-hmm. I get it so much because this is exactly what I work with too. This is I understand so much like the inner child work and the perspective that you have on I have a choice. I have a
Yeah,
choice on how I feel. I can of course when we're children things happen. And I
yeah,
totally believe that naming the emotions, it's a lack of validation when we were little from our
Mm-hmm.
parents, from our carers or our teachers, whoever was closest to us, because
Mm-hmm.
we're never told. We're always told shut up instead of, oh, I can see you're angry,
Yeah.
and
Let's
work
talk
through
about it.
that. Yes. Instead, we're just being told, no, shut up, or I'll give you a reason to cry, or stuff like that, whatever. And especially for men, I think it's even extra harder because, like you said, being able to be vulnerable, which is probably the hardest thing for anybody to do, and in
Mm.
particular for men, to be able to open your heart, because when you do that, when you open your heart open to receive, you also open it for everything else. You open it for
Absolutely.
possibility of being hurt,
Yeah.
and it's scary. It's absolutely scary.
Yeah, and I think like I couldn't even put that into words 3.5
Mm-hmm.
years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't put it into words. Like it's really really hard to describe. But you have essentially it's an emotional intelligence,
Yeah.
and without trying, without like you said, opening your heart, accepting that fear. This is there was very early on in my sobriety where I decided that I was going to try and make friends with fear instead of run from it.
I love that. Oh my God. That is so good. That is so
Um,
good. How did you do
acknowledge,
that?
acknowledge that it exists.
Mm.
Like you know what fear is when fear hits. You go and you walk through that door and you're like, ooh, I don't want to be here.
Mm-hmm. Run quickly.
You know when it hits. You know when you're uncomfortable. You start getting clammy. You start like your heart palpitates a little bit. The anxiety starts going up. There's a whole bunch of this other stuff that happens in the middle of that, and having a difficult conversation with my boss or standing up for myself. Standing up for myself was like impossible to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, man, just agree.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking up for myself. The first time you go to try and do the thing, speak up. Listen, you know what? I don't like what's going on here, and I'm terrified. What if
Yeah.
I get fired? Like the story that goes on in my head. What if I get fired? What if, I get sent home from work? What am I going to tell my wife? What am I going to like the massive future tripping that goes on before it even happens? I have no idea. I'm not that smart. I'm just it's impossible. Give that person a chance to respond instead of take it away from them. And I used to take it away from them. I used to own it. As long as I owned it, I had control. That was my version of control. But if I let them respond or react, like give it, let it be, let it sit, let the silence be the silence, then I actually get to see who they are. And then I get to choose whether I want to be in that person's presence or not. I get my choice back. I get control over my life. I get control over my response. My words have so much power, it's ridiculous. And I think part of it is like we lose that part. Our words have an incredible power. I can't. Way to close the door on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I won't. Way to close the door on yourself. I should. Way to give yourself a way out. What do I really want? And anytime I get to that spot, what do I really want? Fear. Big time. Because it's change.
Mm.
I was too afraid to read books. Didn't read. I didn't read. I was too afraid to read books, and I never knew why. I eventually figured it out. Lots of tears. I was too afraid to have my mind changed.
Wow.
I was too afraid to have my world blown apart because I was comfortable in that little space.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as you open that up and open yourself up to the amazingness that we have in the world and the human beings that are around us. Like, I lived a pretty closed and sheltered life. I was, fairly privileged. I grew up well. But my mind was so closed. And the reason why it was all closed was fear. Most of it wasn't even mine. Most of it was a message that I grew up with. Most of it was a message from society. What rules do I want to decide to live by? It's all my own choice.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being so vulnerable, by the way, because I can tell. I can tell it's some subjects are very raw for you, you know, and I very much appreciate that. Like, I appreciate everybody being as authentic as they possibly can in every minute, you know.
Yeah.
And I know it's not an easy task either, you know, because
No.
like
Yeah.
you said, there's that voice in our little heads of what are they going to think? What are they going to say? How am I going to be perceived? And that thing that you said about here, you have it. Have your control back, have your power back, basically, because we tend to give our power away to everybody because of that fear that you're describing. You know, we're just
Yep.
so afraid. Yeah. So, besides books, what else have you like? Are you into listening to other people or meditation or things like that? Or is it just
I
intuitive?
and a lot of it is there's books and I mean I never totally became a bookworm.
Mm-hmm.
It's still a reading books is still a work in progress for
Mm-hmm.
me. I didn't perfect it right off the bat. My attention span, uh, what do I actually like? What books
Mm-hmm.
entertain me? What books don't? I'm still learning that because on it's. I mean, I can. Before I started reading, I could count on one hand the book that I read from front to back.
Which one's that? I'm
It was
so
called
curious.
it was called The Long Came a Spider. They made a movie about it with Morgan Freeman in it. And way back in my late teens, I had a girlfriend who dared me to read it because I wasn't a reader.
Wow.
And this goes back to like the whole power of words. I'm not a
Yes.
reader,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
Before I even started reading, I started changing my language in front of what I was going to do. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I am a reader now. It's just not something I've picked up yet. And that's how I changed my language. I started my inner dialogue and my outer dialogue. My outer dialogue was, now I'm a reader.
Mm-hmm.
And about a week later, I picked up a book. It all depends. Like, where do you want to go? And that's part of the whole major fear of it all, right? Where do you want to go? Oh crap! Now I'm responsible and accountable to myself because, uh, right?
That's what it is, yes. Nobody else to blame for anything or to point fingers at anymore. I gotta take
No,
my own life in my own hands.
and and so like I'm still in the process of how do I not float through it, and how do I push? How do
Mm,
I put myself? Where's my next uncomfortable situation? How do I figure out what my boundaries and what my limits are? My own personal ones, the ones that you know that I know when I hit a wall,
mm.
there's growth on the other side of the wall. I just have to push through it. I heard somebody say this once and it stuck with me. When it gets hard, it means I'm learning.
I love that.
And I'm like, "Oh crap." So I'm working online in Canva trying to create images and I'm watch my language.
Language,
Uh,
language.
right?
Yes.
I'm not much of an artist. It's not something that I have a skill at yet,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I'm working on Canva trying to create images, and I'm getting all frustrated, and I'm like, stupid program, blah 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 blah, and it's the user, right? You know it's the user, um, and I paused, and I was like, it's starting to get hard because I haven't been here yet,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the answer. Okay, it's time to sit in the hard, and time to sit in this uncomfortable. About half hour later, I had it figured out. I had this image all done, and I was proud of myself. All because I didn't stop. That was a spot, a simple example of where I normally would have turned around or asked somebody who knew what they were doing
Mm-hmm.
to do it for me, because I know enough people.
Mm-hmm.
Small example of a little bit of determination, but that little thing, it's those little things that add up to me being a better person overall, me learning more about myself, me pushing that next little boundary when it gets uncomfortable, and understanding that it's going to take a little bit of pain and a little bit of frustration. My brain's actually figuring out, you know, it's setting up new wiring. It's
Mm-hmm.
setting up a new memory. And that's the pain. That's the awkwardness. That's the crap. Damn it. Really? And it was just that one sentence that caught me, and I was like, that's what I'm doing. So I catch myself all the time and I say, Steve, you're just learning.
Wow.
And that helps me sit through it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's very important what you said as well of, okay, I can tell I'm at a stuck place now. Take a
Mm-hmm.
pause, right? The pause, it's so important
Yeah.
instead of trying to figure it out of frustrated energy, because that's not going to work either.
Yep.
Or wanting somebody else to do it for you. Of course, sometimes in the future you might be get to a point of delegating other people because your
Yep.
time is going to be used with some other things. But
Mm-hmm.
this is such a skill to have, right? To learn and like you said, it's creating new connections in your brain, and
Yep.
it does take a while. It literally is growth pains, and
It
it's like
literally is. Yeah.
it's like any other habit that we have, right? If we walk on the same path day in day out, the trench in that road is going to be pretty deep. So if
Mm-hmm.
you want to recreate something else, you got to walk next to that one or further down, or another one altogether. Take the train,
Yep.
some other road altogether. And that's the only way to do it, to create it by, well, trying something new and pushing past that little bit of discomfort, through your comfort zone.
You create new scenery for yourself.
Yeah.
It's like going for a hike on a
Mm.
trail you've never gone on.
Oh, yes.
It's it's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's a mental adventure instead of a physical one, a visual one. So, like, I've made a lot of mistakes along the way. I've taken a lot of advice from people who've never done the things that I want to go to. Like,
Hmm.
that was another, like, kick in the gut, right? If that person has never been to where you want to go, why am I taking advice from them?
Oh my God. I mean, so far, there have been so many times when you shared something and said something, and I'm getting goosebumps because it's like your see to me doing this shows me a mirror of myself quite a lot, and of the things that I have done or the things that I've come across. Because that what you just said there, why would I want to take advice from somebody that hasn't been where I want to go?
Right.
Like, I'm a baker and I'm gonna come and tell you about finance, because I'm a baker and I know best. No, I don't. No, I
Right.
don't. No, I do not. Go to a finance person if you want to know about finance. Totally agree.
How did I get to this place? A lot of it was me trusting strangers.
Mm,
And I'll say this over and over again. Like, there are people in this world that all they want to do is teach you what they know. There's
yep.
there's tons of them out there. They want to share their experience with you because they don't want you to go through the same crap they went through.
Yeah.
Right? There's so many people online that are just willing to listen. There's so many people. Strangers saved my life. Strangers helped me get to where I am right now. Plain and simple. And I've met strangers too where, you know what, I've made the mistake of giving that trust away. But if
Mm,
I don't stand in front of the fear of giving that trust away, I'll never learn
mhm.
and I'll never grow and I'll never find that person that can hold that trust when I need it the most. I'll never find that person. It's generally speaking, it's people and a willingness to try. Just try.
You know what? I love what you said there. I don't know if you even realize what you said about people teaching you something, but you mentioned the listening part, because I think that's probably one of the biggest things that we are battling with this day and age,
Mm-hmm.
of there's nobody here to listen. We don't have like connections, even when you're out, let's say to a restaurant with a friend, and they've got the phone on the table, and now and then they just check it, or they get distracted by any other things, because we are so far out somehow, of connection with people and listening to people. And again, I've said it earlier today too. I'm reading this book that's literally called You're Not Listening. And it's exactly that, it's it's exactly that. And how much we can teach, because that's what I picked up on that from you. You teach people by listening. You just give them space to, and allow them to share what they have to share. People will always tell you who they are if you listen to them. And even that with the trust, the part with the trust, same thing. You
One of
gotta
the
go through it. Yeah.
one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself and someone else is the time to listen. You'll open up their world, and I say that because a lot of the times all we need to do is hear ourselves talk.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And without a safe space for someone to listen to us talk, you're never going to get to the words that burn when they come out of your mouth. And I stole that line from Andy Grammer because it's in one of his songs. But those are the important moments. That's when we heal. And there's a whole bunch of us in society that I think are healing already. They're working on that healing and understanding that vulnerability is how connection happens, and that's how you break through your loneliness. And this is where we start getting community back,
Mm.
and where we start being social beings again, because we all are. We're just disconnected from what's important.
And I think mainly first one, the first person that we're disconnected from is ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I know, like in particular, for anybody that has any sort of addiction, external addiction, because otherwise we all have internal addictions galore,
Yeah.
to our thoughts. And
Thinking addictions, like just
yeah,
alone, thinking
yeah,
addictions alone. Yep.
yes. And even what you said, like when you speak it out, it just having a sounding board and somebody that's external of you, sometimes that's all that's needed, because otherwise it just goes round and round in circles in your head, and it amplifies and it grows and it expands, and it starts having other branches, and those expand as well, so it just complete
You
matzo
can
ball
grow
of,
you can
yeah.
grow a tree of your own bullshit really fast.
Totally.
Right?
Totally, yes.
Right?
Yes, I love that. I've never heard that before.
I just made it up. You just talked
Brilliant.
about branches and stuff, and I was like, "Yeah, you're just growing a tree of your own bullshit."
Put
I'm
that
good at
down.
it.
Patented, or whatever
It's a
whatever
patent.
people call it. Wow, your own share of bullshit.
It is.
Yeah. Happens to the better of us.
Oh yeah, and I mean, it's just the runaround.
Yeah,
Really early on, I learned that if I put some air under it, it has a lot less power over me.
100%.
Shame dies in the light. We just need to find a place to put it,
Yes.
a safe place. And I think there's a lot more safer places out there than we think. We've just been putting it in the wrong spot for a really long time. That was me.
Mm-hmm.
I put my vulnerability in the wrong spot.
Mm-hmm.
And I forgot, and I didn't listen to the messages that were outside of me. So I always try to force. You try and force someone to love you. You try and force someone to like you or respect you. And you try and force, some sort of external validation or acknowledgement by people pleasing, or being a perfectionist, or, plethora of other things. And in the process of all of that is self-abandonment. To switch that around and say, like, I'm going to be me, and I'm going to be okay with myself to a point where, like, I'm confident. I'm 3.5 years sober, and I've put so much freaking work into myself. I'm still working on that. I'm more comfortable in my own. Just this past summer,
Mm-hmm.
I said to a friend, like, I'm good. I like who I am. And it's taken me 3+ years to actually say it and believe it, to a point where I can stand in front or talk to people and believe and trust the words that are coming out of my mouth, to a point where if somebody disagrees with it, I know it's not about me. That
Really
was a
takes.
hard freaking battle. There's so many messages, so many beliefs that I realized I don't agree with anymore. Another amazing book is The Four Agreements. It's short and it's simple, but, like, how often do we agree to shit that's just made up? It's just made up. Most everything, all of our rules are just somebody made them up. They came from somewhere.
Some human construct.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, so how much of it actually is worth its weight, and how much of it's just something I've decided to live by because someone said it?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just as guilty because I'm naive as hell. I am. And my friends will tell you, like, I'm pretty naive, and there's parts of me that I don't want to let go of that, because it there's part of that inner child and that naivety
Oops.
that keeps my heart open to letting love in and giving it.
Mm.
And so it's not a part I want to close off.
And if anybody's feeling that, I am totally a proponent for it too, because you mentioned the word naive and innocent is another one that
Mm-hmm.
I, it's like you were saying the words out of my brain, because that's me too. You know, I've always had this thing of, and a lot of people that know me a bit more have this thing of that you've got a lot of innocence and naivety, and I'm like, I'd rather be like that. There's a big part of me that's like, I don't want to know. Okay, I know there's a lot of shit in the world that's happening and people are doing some crappy stuff, but I don't want to. It's like I want to keep that purity somewhat of the soul, because I feel like it's a purity of the soul that just
Yeah.
stays with you. And people see that, you know, or feel it. Even if they don't see it, they feel it. And I feel that
Yeah.
that allows other people to open up, you know, and to there's a different kind of substance to it, you know, and people just feel into that and they feel safe into it. So
Mm-hmm.
I I'm totally on the same page with that one. And people keeping their innocence as much as they possibly can, because at the end of the day we're all children inside. I totally believe that. We're just children that walk around in an adult suit.
Pretty
Because
much.
yeah, yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
So, do you, besides doing your podcast, do you have any other things like I don't know, like a support group, let's say, or do you work with clients like one on one, or what do you
I
do?
work with clients one-on-one. I'm a coach. So
Mm-hmm.
if there's anybody listening right now and they connect to this, man or woman, I work with both. I'm open to taking clients if you have,
Honestly,
any sort of addiction.
send me all the details, and I'll put them in the description, because this is why I'm doing this. I want to connect people.
We have a website. It's www.throughtheglassrecovery.com. We host a recovery meeting every Monday night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. We call it a sober Zoom support group, and
Mm-hmm.
it's on Zoom, so it's like accessible to anyone. All you need is a cell phone and an internet connection. Um, but it's open to anyone, and it's a support group. We've been doing it since April of last year. Every Monday night we're there. Myself or Julie host, and we pick a topic that's related to recovery, just like the podcast. If you listen to the podcast, the meeting's just like it.
Mm-hmm.
And we pick a topic related to recovery, and we sit down with a group of people. There's people from the East Coast. There's people from California. There's people all over the United States and Canada, that show up. It's not, and one of the things is people find the word meeting intimidating,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the reasons why we do what we do, and we do it this way, is because even if 20 people show up at the meeting, we go through and we introduce ourselves. Then after that, we because of Zoom and the wonderfulness of Zoom, we can create breakout rooms. So
Mm-hmm.
everyone ends up in a group of 4 or 5 people, and then they get to share. So it's a lot more intimate of an environment. It's not this big, overwhelming mass of people that you have to share in front of. So that anxiety gets dropped, and you can have a conversation and talk about a problem, and share what you're going through, and work through it if you need to. And then afterwards, we all come back in the same room and just kind of have a little bit of an after party and share what we thought, our thoughts or whatever. So, yeah, so it's Through the Glass Recovery Podcast. That's the podcast. It's on all of the listening platforms. www.throughtheglassrecovery.com. That's our website. You can actually listen to the podcast on the website too, because it's all there as well. And yeah, on social media, Through the Glass Recovery on Facebook, Through the Glass Recovery on Instagram. We're kind of all over the place.
Brilliant. I mean, send me all of the information. I'll put them in the description, all of it. And I've got a question. Why Through the Glass? Where did that come about?
The other side of the bottle.
Oh, I was wondering whether it's got to do. Yeah.
Yeah, the other side of it's basically, if you look at it, it's the other side of the bottle, the other side of alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Vulnerability is the antidote to shame.
Mm.
We have a nice little tagline that I'm not remembering right now because I put myself under pressure.
But this vulnerability is what did you just say? Vulnerability through shame, but you said it differently.
Vulnerability is the antidote to shame.
There we go. So that could be your tagline right there. Yeah.
My addiction wasn't about the alcohol at all.
100%. I totally believe, before you go any further. Sorry.
It's not about the substance, right?
Yes. When it gets to that, it's because the internal addictions are so much, but the body's not listening, the mind is not listening, so it's going to find something external. Sorry.
Yeah. No, you're bang on, right? It's not about the substance.
Yeah.
What I want to know is I want to hear about you.
Oh, what do you want to know about me?
No, that's
in general.
In general,
yes.
Right?
Yes. I literally took it. I took it literal.
I know.
Right there.
I know. I do that too. That's part of the naivety, right? And the innocence. So, what do you do?
Sure.
You tell me. What do you do? Now I'm curious.
What do I do? What do I do? Who am I being? I guess. Well, I am very new to the podcast world. And very new, meaning a few months now, maybe I don't know, 2-3 months. And it initially started with, I just want to speak, and I wanted it to be just me talking. I'm going to make a clip, put it out there. That's it, with whatever topic subject. And then I thought, why would I want to speak to myself when I can have other people join in? So I started reaching out to my friends. Some of them, like one of my friends recently published a book, and I thought that would be great for her to talk about a book and get people to know about it and whatever. And then other friends that have got other podcasts and programs and courses and everything that they've got out there. And I thought, if I can get people to connect and know, like this, same with you, there's so many people that I'm sure are going to listen and be like, yeah, I need some of that. If I can be the middleman, let's say. And then it's so funny because yesterday I had the idea, I could be the Joe Rogan female version. That would be fucking great. And then my partner was like, you're kind of putting yourself into a box, because that means that you're just gonna be that big. You can probably be bigger. I'm like, cool, that would be even greater. You know. But anyway, besides this, I am a Soma breath instructor. It's a type of breath work that includes music and, wow, rhythmic breathing, breath retention. That's the other part of what I do. Plus, I have gone through a humongous, biggest of my life, dark night of the ego, I call it now. It's not even dark night of the soul anymore, because I heard this somewhere. The soul is the soul. It's the ego that goes through all the deaths that it's going through. So I'm like, I really like that. I think I'm gonna use that, and that's one of my episodes actually on my YouTube
Amazing.
channel, The
I'm gonna have
Dark
to
Night
take a
of the
look at
Ego.
that. Yeah.
Yes, and yeah, it's just like, I'm at a point right now where I feel like I'm in a completely different reality altogether to what I have lived so far. And I resonate, yes, and I can totally see when you were describing your life before and your life now, it's like I can see it, because of course we resonate with people when something so major happens and there's a massive schism, was the word that came to mind. Wow. You just change completely. You go to of course, if you push through that wall that you were describing, the uncomfortability of the unknown, because that's what it is. We get to a point of, oh, I have never been here before. This is very uncomfortable. I'm just going to take a step back and stay in the comfortable of the uncomfortable, because it's not pleasant, right? Or I push through and do something else and become something else in the process, somebody else in the process. That's where I'm at. Like, I am a completely different person now than what I was 7 years ago, 8 years ago. Oh my God, it's like complete difference of the stick. Same stick, because I'm the same person somewhat, but oh my Lord. Woo!
Inside's completely different.
Yes, check me out. I never expected me to share my life. But thank you for that. Thank you for the opportunity.
So, what inspired you to start the podcast?
Yeah, I mean, a while ago, what do we now? Like end of 2021, I
Yeah.
joined this program, life coaching program, and through it, I don't know, the same as wanting to push out of my comfort zone, I thought, what can I do differently? And I love to talk and I love to listen as well. But one of the love to talk thing and being comfortable in front of a camera, I don't know why I had that thing. I knew that was so out of my comfort zone. So I started recording little clips on my phone about the stuff that was going on in my head. They're still on my YouTube channel from 3 years ago.
Amazing.
They're funny as shit. Some of them are like, what the fuck? Honestly, watching back now, I'm like, oh my God, I love her. Like, I love her.
Yeah.
Me then for doing those things, just to push out of her comfort zone. And I've done that for a while, and then I stopped because life just changed.
Yep.
And most recently, I thought, I have this channel and I am like this part of Dark Night of the Ego that I went through. I felt like everything that I've ever known humanely possible that I've learned throughout my life, through my spiritual growth, all of it is like being ripped off, clean slate. Like anything that I was trying to do to take myself out of it wasn't working. So I thought, well, what can I do? And I thought, I'm just going to sit in front of my laptop and record myself talk. And then, of course, like I told you, I just done a few clips like that, and then I thought, oh, I can invite other people. That would be a great idea. And then the more I thought about it, the more I'm like, oh my God, this really excites me. This is something that I really love doing. Like, even this, who would have known that a person that lived in Ontario, I've got a friend in Ontario, by the way, and I've got a friend in Colorado too. Like,
Cool.
one of my best friends ever in the world, he's in Colorado.
Nice.
So that's pretty cool. And I thought, this is just something so cool and fun. And I know I have learned so far throughout my life that if I don't follow my heart and the path with heart, I can tell, like my body's going to tell me, because if I feel meh about shit, I know it's not the path. This, even like yesterday when I was going through messages and comments, and I'm like, wow, this is just so mind blowing. And I got so excited to be able to connect with so many people and do this. What else can I want?
Pretty awesome, isn't it?
Right?
Yep.
And then I know that it's not, besides the fact that I'm learning something new about myself and about the person that's in front of me, I know that somebody else that's listening in is going to learn something as well, you know? And how other else, I don't know if that's correct, to serve the world rather than doing something like this, right?
Yep. It's all about
That's
giving
me.
back, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's been
It's a
huge
way.
for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
Yeah.
feel you there.
Yeah, because I
Absolutely.
believe that this is what you're doing too, with everything that you're doing, whether it's your podcast or the little groups that you have. And honestly, I think the biggest thing that you're doing for the world is what you do for yourself. The fact that
Oh,
you,
that's
the
all
fact
of
that
us.
if
Yeah.
first of all, yeah, you give the love
Yeah.
to yourself first. You're the first, you're the main important character in your life, in your play, in your movie.
You know, I don't it really doesn't matter what you're recovering from. It could be a deep
Yeah.
depression, uh it could be anything. Any form of shopping addiction, you name it, right? Uh you could be recovering from anything, trying to heal.
Mm-hmm.
The process is the same.
Yeah.
And so it's just finding out that way that works for you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
Absolutely.
tough, right? Like, how? Everyone wants to know how. The thing is you have the answer. There's no one else that knows you better than you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's power in taking advice from other people as well, but
Mm-hmm.
not to the point of blindly taking advice from other people and following whatever anybody else is doing. And
Yep.
it's so funny because I heard this. I don't know where I heard it, but it just stuck with me so much. Oh God, where the heck was it? Somebody was talking about, let's say, Michael Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, because it was something to do with marketing, like people marketing themselves and their business and whatever. So he's like, imagine Michael Jackson going on a stage to be like, I wrote Billie Jeans and it was such a fucking success. You need to do the same thing as I do, No,
Right.
not
No.
really. Not really. You have your own freaking way of discovering things and learning and putting yourself out there. It doesn't have to be like everybody else, because when we all do the same thing as everybody else, we're just, where's the fun in that, right? There's no variety. There's no, I don't know, there's no differences. Everybody's just the same. It's a bit boring. It gets a bit boring.
Yeah, well, where was I going to go with this? We're all unique in our own way.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we all just be the sheep, there isn't really a whole lot of fun in that. But you just the whole self-discovery, but it takes a lot of courage.
Yeah. Yes.
It takes a crap ton of courage.
Yeah.
And it's still, even to this day, it takes courage. As soon as I get to a spot that's uncomfortable, I can go back, even if I'm already uncomfortable, right? It's literally the difference between how uncomfortable do I want to be.
Mm-hmm.
I can go into the unknown and experience that uncomfortable, or I can stay where I'm at right now, even if I don't like it. It's just my subconscious likes to think that because if I do stay in this and I continue to do the same things, I know what the outcome is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that's the whole staying comfortable, even though you're uncomfortable. It's like, I don't even
Yeah.
like what I'm doing here. Well, then why are you still doing it? Well, I don't know. And it's because, right? I'm comfortable in my crap,
Mm-hmm.
even though I don't like it.
The trick of the ego, right? That's the
Yeah.
trick of the ego.
The trick of the eagle.
Yes, that's what our minds do. They
Yeah.
just create stories, and it's a thing that a lot of people don't even realize, they don't even realize that it's uncomfortable, but it's comfortable, because it's the known. It's the known.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess like you said, it takes so much courage to be able to choose every day and every moment you know, choose which path you want to go down.
All of us are way more powerful than we give ourselves credit for.
Damn
Way
right.
more powerful.
Yeah.
Just are.
Yeah. Well, I think we can wrap this up. Is there anything else that you would like to share? I mean, you gave me all the information and you're going to send it through so I can put in the description about where people can find you.
Mm-hmm.
And would you like to share any other wise words to end?
No, I think we're good.
Brilliant.
Just this was great. It was
Thank you
just
very
a
much.
heck of a surprise. I'm glad I spiffied up a little bit today. I'm glad I didn't show up wearing my PJs.
I mean, that would have been fun too. I wouldn't
It,
have cared. Like, this
I
is the
know,
thing,
I can
you know,
tell.
because it's one of them things. Like, if that's your authentic self in that moment, perfect, do that. We all have
Yep.
this thing in our heads that we gotta look a certain way, gotta be presented this way, this way, this way, and there's
Mm-hmm.
nothing wrong with that. You know, everybody has their own thing. But if it happens to be one of them days when it's pajama day, well, cool,
This is two of my favorite shirts. I love this
nice.
shirt and I love this shirt. So
I am
like
so privileged.
you're getting all authentic Steve.
All the goodies. Thank
Straight
you
up.
so much. I love that. Well, thank you for firstly for your vulnerability and sharing whatever you shared in here. Secondly, for doing the work on yourself. And thirdly, for sharing it to the world.
Absolutely.
Because that's how we become the light for some other people, you know?
You got that right.
That's it from me.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me on your show.
Alrighty. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.